Hey everybody, ronarray here, and for the last few days I've been improving my monk build even further, and now my screen-wide Whirling Assault spinner is ready. Right now it looks absolutely great. This martial artist build has screen-wide AoE, one-button gameplay, almost no charge management, plus satisfying fire explosions as well. It also has great damage, can freeze, shock and ignite, while getting huge boost from full Trinity setup, clearing almost all content with just Whirling Assault and using the Tempest Bell only to slap bosses even faster. On top of that, build is very tanky, going up from 6 to 8k energy shield depending on your items, about 50 to 60% evasion, plus chaos immunity and some deflection as well. So in this video, I will cover all aspects of the current build setup, explain how you can get AoE as high as possible for comfortable gameplay, make mana situation much better, boost defenses and damage, get full Trinity bonus, and what is the order of improvements for your items and other things too. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you appreciate such build breakdowns, plus check the written guide in the description as well for additional info. Let's go! Also keep in mind that version of the build is meant to be played when your damage is high enough and you just want as high quality of life as possible to go for bigger AoE. And first off, let's start with discussing AoE in general. The big thing for AoE is getting as much increased area of effect as possible, and there's a few ways how you can get it. First off, getting some bear idols to your helmet is a good boost to it because it's going to give you 20% on increased area of effect for practically almost free. For that, you might buy an exceptional helmet even if an energy shield for that helmet is going to be lower than usual. Since in that variation we're not going to use subterfuge mask, it's absolutely fine, so feel free to get the helmet with like 350 energy shield for example, which is working for your budget, but having two sockets right here for Bear Idol is definitely feeling very good. Next up is using little different supports as well. In my current setup, I'm using Varana Siege in Whirling Assault 2 to get increased area of effect. If you don't have budget for it, you can always just use magnified area instead of Varana and get even higher AoE with that. However, just Varana itself is pretty good since you're mostly going to use it against the bosses. And since in that variation of the build I'm using only Whirling Assault and Tempest Bell against the bosses, I believe that it's definitely justified in that regard. So next step is the tree itself. So if before we've been mostly taking the damage right here, instead right now we can just take AoE. Same goes here, we are taking Resolute Reach even if it's reducing our critical hit chance. It's not the end of the world and most of the time the build will recover just fine, since we can still use supports such as Pinpoint Critical to get our crit chance as high as possible. Since we have additional crit chance from things like Daze, right here from Stupefy, I believe that reaching about 80% of crit is mandatory, but everything on top is not that important. So same goes for the Jewel. We can get Time Loss Sapphire for notable passive skill and radius, grant 3% increased area of effect, which is working pretty nice together with critical damage bonus, maybe critical hit chance or energy shield. So just getting AoE here is working pretty good because we have a lot of notables around, so more AoE nodes as well. And the next step is using a particular node on your amulet too. So at the moment I'm using Devastation because it gives 15% increased attack area damage and 12% increased area of effect for attacks. I think it's boosting AoE pretty nice together with all other things I mentioned. And as the last stroke is just Megalomaniac Diamond with Primal Growth. At the moment you can get it for not too expensive, but if the price of that Megalomaniac with Primal Growth is going to jump too significantly, you can always just swap it and buy Megalomaniac with Devastation instead and get the Primal Growth on your amulet in that case. And if for any reason Megalomaniac is not available for you, like at all, you can completely drop it out of the build and just use a basic Ruby Jewel with 6% increased area of effect and increased attack damage right there. Now let's talk about the skill itself and how we can get damage for it as high as possible. So at the moment, I'm not using Rage as a support for Whirling Assault. Mostly because I have Rage on my Heart of the Well. So getting the Rage on Heart of the Well or using the red jewel with gain 1 Rage on melee hit is absolutely mandatory to boost your damage, instead of adding the Rage support to Whirling Assault. In terms of supports, if you don't have the currency and you want to go as cheap as possible, your setup will look like that: Element Armament, Pinpoint, Efficiency, Magnified and Ancestral Call. Keep in mind that in some situations you can also replace Pinpoint with Blindside support, just because it's going to give more critical damage and critical hit chance as well. However, for more expensive versions, there's a few things we can add to get even more damage up. First off, replacing Magnified with Varanas. Second option is using Rigveld's Ferocity. Rigveld's Ferocity in the second weapon set. If you're using Rigveld, make sure that your weapon in the second weapon set and not in the first. And the last step is Pinpoint Critical. If you have a lot of currency, you can just add Garukhan's Resolve instead. In that case, you will need to swap some parts of the build to make sure that your crit is not exceeding 50%. As you can see, mine is 55 without Garukhan, so I would probably swap a few little things in the tree. If you don't have money for Garukhan, as a last support you can either run Pinpoint, you can use Blindside, or even Ancestral Call is going to be absolutely fine in that case. However, Garukhan is providing a pretty nice bonus damage, so if you have money for it, definitely go for it. So when we are talking about the tree in terms of changes, if you're using Garukhan, I recommend to get rid of Careful Assassin right here, and after you get rid of Careful Assassin, you can always invest it back into Critical Exploit to have the same amount of crit chance, like a little less, and you still will be stuck about 50% of crit. You can also spend those 3 points investing them into small points for maximum energy shield. In that variation of the build, you don't really care about the charges, and most of the time you're just going to hit enemies with your Whirling Assault and Tempest Bell for bosses. Now let's talk about the rest of the supports for the rest of the skills. So for Tempest Bell, I'm still using Magnified, Ancestral, Close Combat, Durability and Blindside. If you feel like it costs too much mana, it's about 368 for me. You can also add Efficiency instead of the Close Combat, so you will not spend too much mana while using your bell. However, most of the maps you will just clear while spamming one button, which is Whirling Assault, and it feels absolutely amazing, so just use the bells only on bosses or very tough rares in some situations. Ghost Dance is the main way how we are recovering our energy shield. It provides a pretty steady recovery, so cooldown recovery and clarity for it is pretty nice. Also, you can still recover with Chevron Satchel and spamming the flask for 30% of recovery applied instantly. Don't forget that you need that instant prefix for Chevron Satchel to recover your energy shield when you're clicking your flask, so don't forget about that. If you're using any other belt such as Headhunter or Mage Blood, you will be fine as well, so don't be afraid to replace it. That way Ghost Dance will be the main thing how you recover your shield overall. So for Killing Palm is still Thrill of the Kill, Charge Profusion, Blazing Critical and Rage. You're using Killing Palm only to get some charges and charge stuff up before bosses. You don't need it in almost any other situation, so that skill is barely used, but I'm still keeping it in the build because we might need charges in some moments to get charge stuff up. So for Hero Dovage, we just need Magnified Area 2 and nothing else. It's also pretty important to keep in mind that Hero Dovage should be level 4, not higher than that, because you don't need to buff strength requirement for it. So the Wind Dancer is helping with survivability and also generating additional charges for us. Right here we have Blind Support, Main Support, Culmination and Elith Chimes. So to add Elith Chimes to the skill, you need to add Culmination 2 in first. Keep that in mind, so every time when you're hitting enemies with Whirling Assault, you're going to build combo for Wind Dancer, and when enemies will hit you, they will just generate charges for you for free. So right here we have a charge staff with Prolonged Duration, Culling Strike, Blazing Critical, Embitter and Innervate. A pretty important part here is Embitter. Since we're using Trinity in that build, it's kinda hard to get enough cold damage on your things, and charge staff is one of the best way to get cold damage that way. So for your Heart of the Well, I recommend to get extra fire and extra lightning. That way you can just buff Embitter on charge staff and your Trinity is going to be full almost all the time if you have all 3 types of damage on your weapon. So Trinity is coming from the amulet. I showcased how to craft that one in one of my previous videos, feel free to check it. For it, I'm using only one support, which is Fire Mastery, but level 20 is max, you don't really care about it if your Trinity is level 20 as well, so it gives practically nothing. Holo Focus is very important because that's fixing our mana situation completely. For that, we're using Osin Oath in the Holo Focus, together with Blind, Elemental Armament, Cooldown Recovery, and Magnified Area. That way, every time when Holo Focus Bell is appearing and we are hitting it with our skill, we can just leech mana through Osin Oath. For it to work, you will need to get leech % of physical attack damage as mana on one of your rings or on your gloves. It's pretty important, so keep that part in mind. For Holo Resonance, we're currently using it only because it's working passively. We don't really need Holo Form anymore because we're just going to use the Holo Resonance in almost all situations, and I don't really want to click another button, and I want to make build as comfortable as possible to play. So if you feel like you need Holo Form to fight the enemies properly and like kill some bosses, you can just swap Holo Resonance to Holo Form back. However, I feel like my damage is enough to clear everything with just Resonance, so I'm using Magnified Area, Blind, Elemental Armament, Close Combat, and Culling Strike for it. It's a pretty nice addition to your damage since you're going to crit with a very big % of your hit, since your crit is very high, and Holo Resonance is going to proc non-stop as well. So your whole gameplay is practically just spamming Whirling Assault and moving through the map without and running in between parks, which should feel absolutely great. And on the bosses, you're using Tempest Bow and hitting Whirling Assault even more, killing the boss as fast as possible. If you feel like your boss damage is not enough, swap back to Holo Form in one of the previous versions. So the main reason why I'm going down here, reaching pure energy, is additional intelligence from that, and additional intelligence from those points as well. If you lack the stats to swap Chevron Satchel to any other build, it could be a nice way to do that. If you don't, you can always replay those 2 points and just get even more evasion and energy shield right here, just to finish up is almost 8k energy shield and like up to 60% evasion if your gear is good. If for any reason you feel like your gear is not good enough and you're ready to just lose some damage or a little AoE to survive better, first off, I would recommend you to drop those 2 points, so no Resolute Reach for you, and in that case just invest them back into basic points like that. You will not lose much AoE from losing the Resolute. In that case, you can get even more survivability, and it will be easier for you to survive maps, even if your items are suboptimal at the moment. Same with those 2 little passives as well. If you need more damage, you can always repick them. I'm also using as a ascendancy like Tattooed Runes. I'm boosting some resistances with it for like lightning resistance in the helmet, Desert Rune for fire. I'm also using Creation Rune of Warding for 50% reduced effect of cursors, which is pretty nice. Movement speed, 1 in the boots, and for the gloves I recommend to get increased magnitude of non-damage elements you inflict, just to boost your shock in general. So talking about the gear, it's also very simple. Most of the time you just aim for the helmet with high energy shield and some additional sockets, so double sockets for bear idols would be good. Amulet I already showcased, you need a free Trinity plus level 4 melee skills and just energy shield. For the ring, you just need to get triple extra damage, some rarity and leech. If you need to drop something, if you're on a budget, you can always drop some extra damage up there. For the gloves, here's my gloves. I have chance to gain Arcane Surge when you deal critical hit, which is pretty nice and giving us bigger uptime of charges, even if you don't really need those much. Critical damage bonus is cool, and getting some tier 1 extra damage is also recommended. For the boots, I honestly recommend to just go with as high evasion rating and energy as possible, getting some deflection on top of it and 35% movement speed so you can run around faster. For the body armor, you can just get deflection 2 together with some resistances in there. And as a belt, you can use either Chevron Satchel, Headhunter or Mage Blood if you have a lot of currency. And talking about the weapon, a very important part at the weapon is getting a crit hit chance. Always check the base that you are buying that they have at least 10% crit chance, and perfectly it should go as high as possible up to 14 or 15. Getting higher tiers of damage here is pretty important too, but even with a subpar weapon you're still going to have enough damage in the most situations. Plus 5 melee skills is also pretty nice, but getting plus 4 in stat is absolutely fine, and critical damage bonus right here barely playing any role, and that's probably the last stat that I would search the weapon. So instead of triple elemental flats, you can also get 100% of elemental damage to attacks. It's a solid option too, however for endgame weapon, I believe just getting triple damage instead is going to be better. As the runes, I still recommend Sakavals and Venomous Rune of Agony because it's just giving a basic damage to you. So I hope that video will help you out to set up your own build. Keep in mind that using AoE is the last step when your damage is already up, and if you're on a budget and want to make more budget-friendly approach, you can also check my written guide because there's a lot of information that might help you to scale your build properly. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll have a lot of fun that league. ronarray out.